If traditional budgeting makes you want to quit, try the reverse method. Imagine checking your bank account, knowing your bills are covered, your savings are growing, your debt is being attacked hand, then spending the money that's left without feeling guilty about every single purchase. Sounds too good to be true, right? But this is exactly what the anti-budget method is designed to do. Instead of tracking every coffee, restaurant bill, subscription, and impulse purchase, you focus on one thing first: paying yourself. Once your financial priorities are handled, you can spend what remains without constantly wondering whether you're breaking the budget. Today, we're breaking down how the anti-budget works, why it can be easier to maintain than traditional budgeting, and how you can use automation to turn it into a system that helps you build real financial progress. The anti-budget flips traditional budgeting completely upside down. Instead of starting with a giant spreadsheet listing every category where your money can go, you start with the money that absolutely needs to be protected. Think of it as reverse budgeting. Your income comes in, and before you have a chance to spend it, you automatically direct money toward your most important financial goals. That could mean paying your bills, contributing to retirement, building your emergency fund, paying down high-interest debt, or investing for the future. Once those priorities are funded, whatever remains becomes your spending money. And here's the important part. You don't necessarily have to track every dollar of that remaining money. If you've already handled your financial responsibilities, you can spend the rest on groceries, restaurants, entertainment, hobbies, or whatever brings value to your life. The goal isn't to stop spending. The goal is to make sure your spending happens after your future has already been funded. This approach can be especially powerful for people who have tried traditional budgeting and constantly felt like they were failing. Maybe you created a perfect spreadsheet, tracked everything for 2 weeks, and then stopped because it became exhausting. The anti-budget removes much of that friction by focusing your attention on the financial actions that matter most. Traditional budgeting isn't necessarily bad. The problem is that some people try to make their budget so detailed that managing the budget becomes a second job. You might create categories for dining, entertainment, gas, groceries, clothing, subscriptions, gifts, personal care, coffee, vacations, and dozens of other expenses. Then every time you spend money, you have to ask yourself whether the purchase fits inside the category. Eventually, that constant decision-making can create something called budget fatigue. You start feeling restricted, frustrated, and guilty about spending money even when you can technically afford it. That's where the anti-budget can provide a different approach. Instead of asking, "Did I spend too much on coffee this month?" you ask, "Did I take care of my financial priorities first?" If the answer is yes, you have already accomplished the most important part. Of course, this doesn't mean you should ignore your finances completely. You still need to know your income, fixed expenses, debt obligations, and savings goals. But instead of micromanaging every purchase, you establish a system that automatically protects the important stuff. This can make your financial plan easier to maintain because you're reducing the number of financial decisions you have to make every day. And the less friction your system creates, the more likely you are to actually stick with it. So how do you actually build an anti-budget? Start with 4 numbers: your monthly income, your essential expenses, your financial goals, and your available spending money. First, determine how much income reliably comes into your household. Next, identify the bills and expenses that must be paid every month. Then decide what you want your money to accomplish beyond simply paying bills. Maybe you want to save $500 per month. Maybe you want to invest 10% of your income. Maybe you want to eliminate $10,000 of debt. Your goals need to be specific enough that you can turn them into automatic actions. Once you know those numbers, automate the process. On payday, money can be directed towards savings, investments, debt payments, and bills before you have an opportunity to spend it elsewhere. The remaining amount becomes your flexible spending money. This is where a tool like PaycheckPlanner.ai can make the process easier. Instead of trying to figure everything out manually every payday, Paycheck Planner can help you organize your paycheck around bills, debt, savings, and financial goals. The objective isn't to create another complicated spreadsheet. It's to create a simple system where your money has a job before you start spending it. When the system is working correctly, you don't have to constantly rely on willpower. Your financial priorities happen automatically, while the money that remains gives you flexibility. Now, there's an important distinction we need to make. Spending guilt-free does not mean spending without limits. The anti-budget only works when your financial foundation is strong enough to support your lifestyle. If your rent, mortgage, debt payments, emergency savings, and other obligations aren't being handled, then spending everything that remains isn't financial freedom, it's potentially creating a bigger problem later. But once your priorities are covered, giving yourself permission to enjoy your money can actually make your financial plan more sustainable. Think about it this way. Money is supposed to serve your life. If you save every dollar, but never allow yourself to enjoy anything, you may eventually become frustrated and abandon the entire plan. The goal is balance. You're building a system where tomorrow's financial security gets funded while today's life still gets enjoyed. That could mean going out to dinner, taking a weekend trip, buying something you've wanted, or spending money on a hobby. If those purchases come from your designated spending money and your financial priorities are already handled, you don't have to beat yourself up over every transaction. The anti-budget gives you permission to enjoy the money you intentionally left available for spending. That psychological freedom can be just as valuable as the financial structure itself. The biggest lesson behind the anti-budget method is that successful personal finance isn't necessarily about becoming obsessed with every transaction. It's about building a system that makes good financial behavior easier to repeat. You want your savings happening automatically. You want your bills accounted for. You want your debt payments moving forward. You want your investments receiving money consistently. And once those priorities are handled, you want to be able to live your life without feeling like every purchase is a financial emergency. That's the real power of reverse budgeting. You're not trying to control every penny. You're controlling the direction of your money. And if you want to put this strategy into practice, check out PaycheckPlanner.ai. Paycheck Planner is designed to help you organize your money around your paychecks, plan for bills, manage debt, build savings, and make progress toward your financial goals. Instead of wondering where your money went after payday, you can start deciding where it should go before payday even arrives. So if traditional budgeting has never worked for you, don't assume that means you're bad with money. You may simply need a system that fits the way you actually live. Try the anti-budget method. Pay yourself first, automate your priorities, and then enjoy what's left. Because when your money is working in the background, you can spend less time worrying about every dollar and more time building the life you actually want. Visit PaycheckPlanner.ai today and start turning your paychecks into a financial plan, because we are building real financial progress, one step at a time.